Hello Year 10 and welcome to today's lesson. Today is our first lesson on medicine through time, which is the next part of your overall GCSE History course. So I'm going to give you a brief introduction to how the course works overall. So the medicine course starts in 1250 and it's a really long time period. We're going to go from 1250 through to the modern day. We look at each time period, what they understood about the cause of the disease, what kind of treatments they were using, and we look at a particular disease case study. We also think about why things were changing and the work of the individuals who were changing those ideas. Then there's a section specifically on World War I injuries and treatments. It's called our Historic Environment section, and asks all about the World War I trenches. Now overall the exam is an hour and 15 minutes long and there are 6 questions on it. You don't really need to worry about much of that now. Perhaps a good thing to remember is that overall the medicine paper will be worth 30% of your total GCSE grade. So today we're going to have a look at Galen's ideas and understand why they were so popular in the Middle Ages. So here's an overview timeline that shows you the various different periods we'll be studying and the different dates. Now we begin in 1250. So why have I got this earlier bit here, the classical period? Well, it's because lots of medieval thought stems from the classical period. So we need to know a bit about what they were thinking then in order to know what the medieval people were thinking. Now when I say classical, I'm talking about Romans and Greeks, ancient Romans and ancient Greeks. So today we're going to have a look at what they believed about medicine and how this continued into the medieval period. So let's start off with what the ancient Greeks believed about medicine. Now there was an extremely influential thinker. His name was Hippocrates. And Hippocrates you may have heard of because we still talk about doctors taking the Hippocratic Oath today. Now Hippocrates came up with the idea of the 4 humours. They believed that the body was made up of 4 different liquids: blood, phlegm, yellow bile and black bile. So it's your blood, your phlegm, the yellow bile is like when you're vomiting, the kind of acid in your stomach, and black bile is essentially referring to your poo. Together we call them the 4 humours. Now Hippocrates believed everyone's body was made up of a balance of these 4 humours. Each of these humours had different characteristics. So they were, for example, hot and dry, like yellow bile, or wet and cold, like phlegm. Blood was hot and wet, and black bile was dry and cold. Now they were affected, each of these humours was affected by a number of things: seasons, planets, even at times what you eat and drink. The ancient Greeks believed that every individual person had their own unique mix of 4 humours, and you became sick if that balance ever, if you ever became unbalanced in your humours. So, for example, if you have a temperature and your face goes really red, the Greeks would say it's because you've got too much blood in your body. And if you suddenly get a dark lump, they would say, well, it's too much black bile. It's all because your humours were unbalanced. Now, to some extent, that seems to make sense, doesn't it? If I get a cold, I seem to be producing lots more phlegm than at other times. If I get a fever, I'm very hot, I'm very red, seems like my blood is up. So you can sort of see where the Greeks get this idea from. Now, because they believed that most diseases were caused by an imbalance in the four humours, sometimes Greek treatments tried to restore the balance. So they would, for example, get rid of too much blood. If I had a fever, I'd get rid of my excess blood. Now, I might do that through leeches, through cutting a vein open and letting some blood out. But they would do something to try and reduce the humour that was too much in order to put you back into balance. Most Greek doctors suggest treatment should be based on rest, changes in diet, giving your body time to heal. Now, Hippocrates was extremely important, but he wasn't the only important classical thinker in terms of medicine. A few centuries after Hippocrates, there was a great Roman doctor, and his name was Galen. He developed Hippocrates' theory of the four humours even further. So Galen created the theory of opposites, and this is basically a treatment theory. Galen suggested that you have too much of one humour, it's making you sick, so you should do the opposite of that humour to make you better. So, for example, if you've got too much phlegm, you've got a cold that's lots of phlegm, that's linked to water, it's cold, it's wet, so you should go and eat something that is hot and dry in order to treat you. Okay? Or perhaps you've got a fever and you're very hot and dry. Well, you should go away and eat something that was cold and wet, maybe like a cucumber. Now, there seems to be logic in this, because what do we do today? If someone's got a fever, well, we try and cool them down, don't we? So Galen's theory of opposites was really, really popular. It was practical, it provided a solution, and it was focused on treatment. Galen became hugely influential. He wrote over 350 texts about medicine, and he claimed to have perfected ancient Greek ideas. So there's no need to do any more. He's told you it all. Right, I have told you my version of Hippocrates and Galen. I'd like you to watch this clip now, but only watch up until 2 minutes 13 in. You don't need to watch past that to get another explanation of Galen and Hippocrates. Now, for the rest of this lesson, we are going to be doing Greek embarrassing bodies. So, you have a whole set of different individuals with an illness. You need to identify which humour is out of balance. You need to describe the symptoms that they are suffering, and you need to explain how you would treat them. For example, Persephone has a fever, so she's got too much blood. So in order to treat her, what we'll do is we'll do the opposite of blood. So blood is hot and wet, so we need something cold and dry. We could also purge her, do some bloodletting. Give it a go, see what you can come up with. So now we're going to start thinking about how this all applies to the Middle Ages, because that's where our course starts in 1250. Now, Galen was still incredibly influential in 1250, which is why we needed to know a bit about his work. But why did people keep on believing a man who'd died so many thousands of years ago? Well, not thousands of them, hundreds, but a long time ago. Really, it's because of these three key factors. Firstly, in the Middle Ages, we saw a revival of classical works through Arab scholars, bringing those works back to Europe. So they had initially sort of died off in Europe. They'd been kept in translation in Arabic in the Middle East, and then they started to be translated back into Latin and brought into Europe in the 9th century. So these classical ideas start flooding into Europe from then. They then become the foundation of European thinking, and particularly medical thinking. So these were textbooks, and you listened to the textbooks. You proved your worth as a physician not by curing lots of different people, but by showing how well read you were. So these classical works became very, very important. Why were they the ones that were well read though? Well, it's partly because the church liked Galen's ideas. That's because Galen's ideas, even though he wasn't a Christian, they seemed to chime with Christianity. Galen put forward the idea that the body has a soul, which of course the church really liked. And so the church started to promote his ideas. Now, if you want to be popular in the Middle Ages, you're religious. You get in with the church. So the church started to promote these ideas, and because the church was so central to medieval society, perhaps at times even being more powerful than, for instance, the king, his works therefore got a lot of press, shall we say. Also, we're talking about Galen's ideas being kept alive in a book. Okay, Galen himself is definitely long dead, but his ideas are alive because they keep on being copied into fresh books. Now, who is it who produces all the books in the Middle Ages? Well, it's the church. It's the monasteries. The monks are the ones who are there scribing all of the various books, and so it's the church who chooses what books get made. If they like you, they'll make your book. If they don't, they won't, and your book will be lost and all your ideas will be forgotten. So the church's support of Galen was really important to why he was popular in the Middle Ages. Lastly, we've got to think about kind of the mentality of the Middle Ages, what people were actually like there, what their attitude was like. Now, they were very conservative. They didn't really challenge traditional authorities. They were just like, yeah, I'm born poor, I'm going to die poor. They didn't think that they had any right to challenge people like the church or the king or their lords. And so if someone higher up than me says that's what it is, okay, that's what it is. You just accept it, you don't question it. And that is what we call like a conservative attitude. There wasn't any science yet, and that kind of questioning the scientific idea of like, why does this happen? Let's do an experiment to work it out. That wasn't there yet. Perhaps best proof of this is the fact that they don't allow dissection. Now, dissection is when you cut up a body in order to learn how it works. And it sounds pretty nasty, but it's really important if you're going to understand medicine and how the body works. Doctors today still do it when they're training. So if you can't cut up a body to understand how it all works, then you won't understand how it works. The church is the one who prevented dissection because they said it was really important that the body remains intact, so that on Judgment Day, when Christ is going to come and everybody is going to rise up again, you need your body intact for that day. So that's why you couldn't do dissections. The problem was, lots of the things that Galen said were actually wrong. And if they'd been able to dissect, they'd have been able to realise that. Because they couldn't dissect, they just accepted what he said and didn't realise his many mistakes. Right, now I would like you to look at page 20 of your textbook and make a copy of the figure 1.3. I want you to extend it out using some examples such as those that I've just given you. Lastly today, I'd like you to have a look at this slide here. Now ideally you would print this page out and fill in the gaps. Some of you might have to copy it and fill in the gaps. Each of the little boxes there is for you to, all the words are in the boxes, you just need to put them in the correct place. So, our plenary. Can you now explain? You can do it out loud, you can write it down, whatever. But can you explain to yourself, what is the theory of opposites? Can you describe it? Who was Galen? Who was Hippocrates? What are the four humours? And what did the Greeks and Romans believe made you ill? If you can answer all those questions, you've got everything from today's lesson. Well done.